Folks, welcome back to the Jake Feinberg Show, and what an honor it is to continue the conversation with really just an iconic multi instrumentalist and a cat I feel very spiritually connected to. Jorge Calderon, welcome back to the Jake Feinberg Show.
I'm glad to be here, Jay.
You know, what are your intentions when you create music that you deem that you want to put on an album? I mean, to me, I don't know if you ever learned this lesson. I just have learned over time that I try to approach things with intentions only and no expectations, because ultimately expectations, you will get let down. But I just wonder, when you create art today, like your upcoming CD, what are your intentions for making music these days?
It's the same. I follow my heart and my instinct and the passion to do this because, I find myself telling people, it's like I can't help but do what I do. I wish I could do something else. I would be living on the beach in Malibu with a giant house. But I just follow my heart. My passion is I get up and I have a song in my mind and I have to write the lyrics or I have to write the music. And that's all I got that comes to me from this place that is all within me and comes in from outside too. It's like an antenna. So, and the passion for rock and roll, rhythm and blues, I can't stop doing that. I guess I'll stop when the meter runs out.
Yeah, man, just do it till the end, you know?
Exactly. So right now, what I'm doing in this record that I'm doing, it's called Love and Dancing, and it's a lot of love songs. And a lot of kind of up tempo, like dancing kind of group songs.
Sure.
They're all in the vein of love. I had my wife of many years passed away in 2020, and then after that, I kind of wanted to dedicate this album because all these songs that I had written through the years with her, that had to do about us, that I hadn't had a chance to record. So I just went in and said, okay, I'm going to do kind of like a theme album. And I'm going to, not a tearjerker or anything like that, just like celebrate that, how lucky.
Celebrate her life. Celebrate her life. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's, and it's all about her, but it's all about love and having a good time. And so that's what it's been. And it's very rhythmic, and there's ballads, but there's very rhythmic to where I come from.
Why? So where you come from?
Islandish.
Yeah. No, I understand. I want you to talk about the people where you come from, Puerto Rico, and then also other middle islands, like the passion for following your heart as opposed to materialism. Where does that come from? I mean, it seems evident on the surface. It's just a lot of repression and economic policies and stuff. But at the same time, the people just are wired to love more than crave material wealth.
I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people that crave material wealth.
No, I'm sorry. I'm just saying, like,
I craved it myself, but
right.
But I can't help but do what I do. I cannot become something else just to get a buck. And I've done some gigs that I regretted. I was hired to do certain songs for a certain Disney thing, and I hated every minute of it. I did it because I needed $2,500 years ago.
Yeah.
And I did it. I hated every minute of it, and I said, why did I do that? But what I do is what I do. And I learned a lesson after doing that record that you like, Warner Brothers, City Music. I learned a lesson because I did it. I put everything I had, and I was young. I was like 27 or 28. So, and then they dropped me, and then they dropped me off the label. I thought I was going to get another chance to do something even better. So that was a shock to me because I was sitting in there and I was watching the roster of people that they had on the label, and there were a lot of people that had nurtured, that had started with kind of like a weaker album, and then they kept them, and they did a better album, and finally got somewhere with them.
It's called artist development. Yeah, there was none of that with you. Yeah,
and none of that with me. It was just like I was dropped from the second floor, dude, and I just went, wow. And it shocked me, and then I was bitter, and I was all this stuff, and then. So that was one aspect of it, saying, okay, well, what I do maybe not commercial enough, or not for the majority of people. And then having hung out with Stevie and Lindsay, and that they joined Fleetwood Mac, and I hung out with them a lot, and became real friends with Mick, and he used to invite me to go see them in different stadiums and stuff. We had a great time. So he, and I saw the rise to fame and what that did to them on a personal level, and what that stardom really looks like. And I just I withdrew myself from that. I kind of like at one point I stopped. I mean, I kept friends with them, but not as much hanging out as I was doing, because I saw that both sides of the coin suck hard, because it's, either you don't make it and you're struggling, you're doing your thing, or you make it and it becomes like a crazy life, and it affects people, and they did a lot of things to their minds and their lives. And so I just went, I'm going to do what's in my heart and do it. If people like it, fine. If they don't, fine. I like it. I love it. So from then on, I started doing what I needed to do musically. That was pleasurable to me, and it brought me joy and stuff. And I would just do that. And so that led to other things, and we can talk about later. But I even one of the songs I wrote with Warren on his last album, I wrote this line for him, and we were writing this song called "Disorder in the House," and I had written the first verse, and in the bottom of the page, I wrote down a fate worse than fame. that a fate worse than fame didn't have anything to do with the verse that I had written for him,
right?
Which was his first verse,
right?
But when he saw it, he went, "Oh yeah, I like that." I said, "Oh, I didn't know that it had to." "Oh yeah, we can use it here." And he,
yeah, it's so great, man. That's man.
So, but it's the truth. That fate's worth. People want to be famous, and then you're famous, and you meet this monster. You have to deal with.
What is okay? So, Brother Calderon, explain to the layperson and the fan an example of the monster of fame. You don't have to name names, but what did you see specifically with people in Fleetwood Mac that was like the other end, like fame sucks?
Well, it just became, they were normal people. We were all friends, down to earth. We would just, meet for breakfast at the coffee shop, and everybody was scrounging to pay for the coffee and eggs and whatever.
Right.
And it became to this thing that it was like so much money and so much attention and so much pressure and adulation for them, that they had to deal with that. And you kind of become, you don't change, with your friends. I mean, there were always beautiful people with me and everything, but I could see how they were changing into what they had to do, the pressures and the drugs and the drinking, and everything became otherworldly, like really exaggerated, and it affected all of them, So I saw that, and I went like, you know what, when I grew up, I was thinking, oh man, I would love to be like Elvis Presley, one of those guys that made it really big. No, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that, because look at where all the people, look at where they end up.
I'm telling you, man, it's just like, wow.
So I'd rather do my thing, put my records out, like I said. Right now, I love what I'm doing. I love these songs. I love my performances and what I'm playing. If the people out there love it, wonderful. If they don't, I love it. I'm going to keep doing another record.
Amen, dude. Straight ahead, man. And to me, like, that's the point, is that it also, I don't know. I mean, even just finding that old record, I mean, I think it holds up, better today. But to be able to come back and sort of document, sort of the beginnings of your career as a leader, that's I kind of wanted you to talk about, any one of the cats like Rye or Warren, like give an example of like leadership on the bandstand.
Well, yeah. I mean, okay, I'll go in order. Like, listen, David Lindley, who I have in my heart right now, he's not doing well, and I don't want to go into it. But,
It's all right. We pray for him, man.
Yeah, we're pulling for him, trying to help his family, and so. But he was a joy. David Lindley is and will always. He was a virtuoso. I mean, I played with him from the beginning of the '80s to the end of the '80s, like all that decade. I played with David Lindley right. Like, and being on stage with him, almost every night he would do something that he had never done.
Wow!
Like he was a virtuoso. That's the perfect word for David Lindley.
Right.
Because Dave would play the stuff, and we're playing the song that we played the night before and everything, but all of a sudden he would do something that it was like, where did this come from? And he was that kind of guy.
Right.
And also the beauty about David is his sense of humor. He was such a funny guy that we had so much fun on stage, off stage, on the buses and everything, that we never had a problem. It was hard to leave the band to do something else because we had so much fun and we had such a good combination of us, because I was one of the few guys that stayed even though other guys changed in the band through the years. So anyway, that's David. So now Rye, it's like another monster.
Well, no, before we go on for a minute, like, how did the tours, when you first started with Lindley, what kind of bills were you on? Like, it's fascinating to me, like, who you would share a bill with. His music is almost genreless music.
Yeah, and we were in the 80s,
it changed a lot.
Yes, thank God for Bob Marley and people like that were coming up in the 80s. Actually, he had been there before, but
he passed in 80 or 81, yeah.
Yeah, he passed away in 81, but I'm saying that all that stuff was getting more popular here,
right.
Not in Europe. In Europe, he was big there, and other things like that. We were playing. It was an eclectic kind of band. We would do reggae, we do rock and roll, we did New Orleans stuff. It was like more of a worldly kind of band, a world music kind of band.
Right.
But still very natural, like homegrown. In other words, not like gimmicky. So, what we did was we started doing clubs. We started doing clubs up and down California, and we would pack them up, and they would break the bar. Everybody would drink so much. It was fun music, and we always went to these places, and we would go, man, we made so much money at the bar because everybody always go, well, that's good,
right?
And then we started opening up for.
Like, what were I'm so curious about, like, early 80s clubs in LA that, like, where you, or in San Francisco where you played. Like, that's fascinating to me.
Yeah, well, pretty much all the time we were the headliner, and then they would get a smaller act, either one person or a little trio or something like that. But when we went on to bigger stages,
right.
We opened up for Tom Petty and Heartbreakers.
Wow.
We opened up for Joe Walsh a couple of times. We opened up for Little Feat, I think it was. We
Beautiful.
shared a gig with them. Things like that. Then we had other people. We opened up for Jimmy Cliff for like a couple of weeks, and he was lovely, a lovely man and a lovely brother. I mean, he was just fantastic.
Wow.
Very friendly to us, and such a nice person. And so it was bills like that. And we opened up for some other African high life kind of guys. I forget, Bundu, I forget the name now, but we did that kind of through the 80s. We did stuff like that.
Were you still on stage? Were you playing without in-ear monitors? Like, is that something you've ever done too? Like, to me, like, it's important to hear your natural environment. Those.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I don't use those heads.
Yeah, it's bullshit.
No. I never. I stopped going on tour and stuff like that before the wave of people doing that. So I never fell into that category of using earphones and stuff. It was always monitors in front of you and around you, and it was all because I like the ambience of the room.
Right.
I was playing I started with a Rickenbacker bass, and then I graduated. Then I had a Gibson Les Paul bass that was amazing sounding, but then it fell and it cracked, and I went back to Fender, and I stayed with a Fender Jazz bass, and I had an SVT, and then I had that. I just stayed very homespun. Like all my heroes as bass players were like that. They used a Fender bass with an SVT or Fender amp or
sure.
Just like Duck Dunn and Willie Weeks and James Jamison and all those great players. It was just like, do your thing, be a bass player, play your bass, no gimmicks.
I dig, man. I freaking love it, man.
Yeah.
I also, one more question. The gym, like attitudes. Did you manifest? Were you going down to the Jim Keltner fan club nights?
No, what is that?
They were like, I'll read you this passage. You're gonna love this, dude. I'll have to find it. I'm just wondering about like your interactions with like Paul Stallworth, Cooch, Keltner, like how you sang with them. But I was just, my hunch told me that you were hanging with those guys in the studios during jam sessions and stuff.
Well, okay. So this is. I knew Paul Stallworth for a long time.
Wow, dude, you knew Stallworth. When did you first meet Stallworth, man? Wow.
I met Stallworth through Smitty.
Of course.
Through William Smith. So we started hanging out, of course. He played bass, and I played rhythm guitar, and I was doing my record. Starting my record with Warner Brothers, so I used to go to his house, we just sit down and jam and play all kinds of stuff, and then we went to this guy, and we would just come up with some crazy beats and grooves and stuff, and we'd record the stuff, and then later on, after we did my album and he played on a few things on my record, he later on. Became the bass player with Calderon on the group Attitudes with Danny Cooch, and so they invited me to go sing, and so we went there. But I don't think I did any jamming with them. I just went there to sing that day. But I knew Paul way before, and Calderon and Paul played on all the faces, and
Where are the recordings of you? And I need the recordings of you and Stallworth, dude.
Oh yeah, well, unfortunately, he passed away about a year or two ago.
He did. He passed away.
Oh yeah, Paul. Oh yeah, he passed away about 2 years ago.
I got to send you my interviews with him.
Oh, great.
Yeah, dude, you're gonna lose your mind, man.
He was a great guy.
Wow. Actually, Keltner said that if out of all those cats, he should have been the star.
Yeah, he should have been the star. He was a groove guy. He was everything for the music, everything for the groove. A loving kind of guy. Just amazing human being. But it just never worked for him. That happens. There's a lot of unsung heroes out
totally.
There. And he was one. And now a good friend, Tish, who used to be Smitty's first wife, who's still with us here, and she's my very good friend, told me that he had left all those tapes, and he had tried to transfer them to digital, and so maybe Amani, who's Smitty's son, might know where to find all that Stallworth stuff. I'll have to ask him.
So either way, like that to me, those grooves, that would be so I would love to hear some of that stuff. But I mean, what about Cooder, man? Like,
Well, okay, so
yeah,
Cooder, like I said, he fired his bass player Tim Drummond at some point after playing with him for a while, and so they asked me to audition, and I did, and I got the gig. So I started playing with him, and I soon found out that he was just this amazing, just as amazing as Lindley. Or I mean, they're both two birds, two wings of the same bird. In other words, like they just like the problem that created for me is that when at the end of the '80s, when I stopped playing with those guys, it was hard for me to play with just a guitar player. The guitar players would come and I'd play and I go, dude, is that all you got? It's like, what's going on? I mean, because these guys have so much knowledge and sound, and they dig deep. They dig a deep trench, soulful, especially Ry. I mean, Ry knows, Ry, hey, all that, Keith Richards stole a lot of stuff. I'm sorry, I read his book, and he's like, he didn't want to cop to it, but Ry told me.
Wait, hold on a second. He acknowledged Ry as an influence, but didn't say he stole licks from Ry?
Yeah, he said something like, "Oh yeah, no, I already knew the G tuning, but but Ry can,
Yeah, I did.
Ry is a guy that does not bad rap anybody, but we've had a conversation,
sure,
about that, and he told me the songs that he had flown to England. And he was, they wanted him to play in these songs, and they jammed for a while. And he was like, he was giving them all this stuff, thinking that we were all jamming. And then, he, like a week passed, and then he called the studio over here. We're jamming today. Oh, I don't know. Nothing's happening.
Yeah.
And you could hear in the background that they were doing stuff. So he got the drift that these guys, all they had done, it was like suck the blood out of him.
Wow.
And now they were doing their thing with it. So he kind of left. He went back to L.A. So I said, dude, so which songs? He said, well, they wrote all these songs on the stuff that I was laying down. And I said, well, which ones? And he mentioned like five songs that were like hits later on. I mean, Honky Tonk Women, he mentioned Brown Sugar, he mentioned like Tumbling Dime. He mentioned all these songs that were like, what? He said,
wow,
yeah,
dude.
but
Whoa,
listen,
dude. That's insane.
He told me, listen, Jorge, I don't, we're talking here, but I don't want any, that's what they do. He explained to me. Here's the thing. In L.A., and this is Ry talking. He said, in L.A., we were all sharing stuff. I learned a lot of the blues, the deep blues stuff, and guitar stuff, and I would share it. But I would have this thing that I wanted to other people to hear this and know how to do it, and I want to like pass it. And over there, I found that everybody was guarded. Everybody was like really like, oh, don't let the Yardbirds hear this. Don't let this.
Right. It was, yeah.
They were all like, because they were learning the shit. They were learning the stuff from the States. They were removed in this other island called Britain. So they didn't want anything. They grabbed onto something with all their lives, right? So he says, that's what I saw it. I knew what it was. They didn't want to share a bit. They want to take in and do what they needed to do. And then I said, but I came from a place, right, talking like that. He said, I come from a place where we were sharing. We were passing it on and exchanging between us. All the Wrecking Crew guys, all those guys were lovely people that were sharers.
Right.
But it was a different scene in London. So he explained to me, and that's why he wasn't angry about it or remorseful about it, having done it, or whatever. Whatever they used. I said, but did they give you any royalties? He said, well, at some point they put a record out, an LP called Jamming with Edward, and it was jamming and with Ry and them. and then they gave him all the royalties from that record. Now that record wasn't a big hit, but he says, I don't want anything from them.
I love what. That's fantastic. I mean, so Keltner said that playing with Rye, sometimes you can get off. I mean, in the live settings with Cooder, like, would you guys be like a couple feet off the ground, like elevating pretty well? Like, could you get into a nice improvisational space, or was it kind of like
yeah.
Go ahead.
No, it was just insane. I mean, it was like really deep trenches and deep. I mean, have you seen on YouTube that the Down in Hollywood live with us and up in Santa Cruz?
I got to go see that.
Part 1 and Part 2. I mean, we did a version of Down in Hollywood that is 16 minutes long.
Wow.
And it's just a funky thing, and we're just like grooving it, and it's just amazing.
That's sick.
It's Part 1 and Part 2. Sometimes the YouTube has both parts together with a little splice in between. Sometimes they have them on their own. But a lot of stuff from that concert is on YouTube, and that was in '88 in '87 and '88 with the big band, which we had. Calderon, myself, Miguel Cruz on percussion, Van Dyke Parks on piano, keyboards, and then we had horns. We had the Steve Douglas from the Wrecking Crew. We had Flaco Jimenez was there, and we had the singers, like 3 or 4 singers. Terry Evans, Bobby King, Arnold McCullough, Willie Green. I mean, it was an insane, great band, and we did a lot of stuff, and Rye was just playing his butt off of the ground, man. I mean, it was just wonderful stuff. And so it was always like that.
Did you hang with Steve Douglas, dude? I've always tripped out about that guy. I need to know about Steve Douglas, man, dude.
We became very good friends.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and on the road we were always hanging out. And, yeah, it was great. Steve Douglas was a very nice and humble guy. I mean, a guy that played. He never ever boasted to me about stuff that he had done. He, if the conversation was about something, he said, oh yeah, man, I got to play the solo on the Do Run Run, and when I used to play with Dwayne Eddy, I was just a kid, man. I played on that song, blah blah blah, or he played on all the Beach Boys stuff. I mean, he was the guy that used to get the horns for Brian Wilson. He would gather. He would say, "Hey, Steve, I need some horns for tomorrow."
Exactly, dude. He was the contractor.
Right, contractor, and he was on Pet Sounds. He was on all those things, and he was in love. All the Phil Spector stuff. Lost that love feeling, and all that stuff.
Yeah, I have these albums with him.
Never bragged.
Yeah, I love it, dude. Fucking A, man. Yeah, man, that's just like being humble about it. I mean, that to me is, I don't know, it's okay to be excited, but not like braggadocious or like boastful. Like, to me, like, just let the music speak for itself. Yeah.
Well, he was because other guys that are obnoxious are guys that are always dropping names, me and this one.
Right.
He's like, no, he wasn't like that. It was all a real thing.
I love that shit, dude.
We were at a session with Rye in Hollywood at Ocean Way, and he says, hey, man, I next door, there's a friend of mine next door I want you to meet, man. Come on, let's take a walk. And we went next door to another building, and he introduced me to Ronnie Spector. And it was Ronnie Spector was, oh, Steve, how are you, my darling? And, hugging him. And he says, this is my friend Jorge. Oh, you come here. And she would hug me like if it was family. Like if you're hanging with Steve, you're family to me.
Wow.
In other words, So that was a wonderful experience for me. And I said, man, you don't know what that meant to me. I said, oh, man, that's great because, Ronnie's a great blah, blah, blah. But it wasn't a big thing. It wasn't a big deal. It was just that. It was a magical moment for me to have met her But he was that kind of guy. He's from the old days. He played on all those wonderful records, and he passed away at some point at an early age. Because
did you know like Emil Richards or Hal Blaine or any of the Wrecking Crew? The original Wrecking Crew.
I met Hal Blaine once, but shook his hand and spoke to him for several moments at the Baked Potato. That's it. Emil Richards, no, I wish he was fantastic.
What about any of the Crusaders, like Joe Sample or anybody like that?
Not Joe Sample, no. No, he was I don't know if he's still around, but he's...
No, I interviewed him, Wilton, Wayne, all those guys. They're all... I mean, I didn't even know... Maybe I thought Keltner told me, but I'm shocked. Paul, I'm bummed out. Love Paul Shallworth. I'm bummed that he died, man.
Yeah. It's going to be on a couple of years now.
Wow.
Yeah.
How did you first meet Warren Zevon?
Oh man, that was like around 1975. I was just either finishing the record, City Music, or I had already done it. Remember I told you that I met Waddy at a gig, early 70s, like 69 or 70, at a gig in Venice.
Yeah, right.
Waddy and his brother.
Right.
Waddy was together with this gal, Crystal, who later on became Warren Zevon's wife, later on, years later. And so I knew Crystal from that crowd. So we were friends, and one time I hadn't met Warren yet. So she called me one time. I was living in Hollywood by myself, and she called me around 2 a.m. or something like that. And, hey man, Jorge, can you, I'm having a really bad time here. My boyfriend is in can you give me a ride to go get him? He's in the drunk tank. He's been, put him in jail or being drunk or something.
Right.
Right. So I went, oh yeah, sure. All you have to do is give us a ride from the police place to our house, to our apartment. I said, sure. So I got out and do that. When we got to the apartment, it was like, he was like all hungover and stuff. And she was like, oh, I don't have my keys. And you have your keys. It was like that kind of situation.
Yeah. Nah.
The place was, they didn't have their keys because in the heat of the confusion, the moment, they had messed up. So I said, listen, don't. This is gonna be funny to you, but I said, listen, don't worry. I'm Puerto Rican. I can get into anybody's house. So I saw that Warren had been looking at the floor all this time. All of a sudden, he looked at me. Put his head up and looked at me and kind of gave me a little smirk, like, ooh, yeah, I like this guy.
Right.
So I went around around the apartment, and I said, "There's got to be something that's loose that you can get in. It's not that I'm going to break in, and guess what? There was a window. You open it up, and I went in, and I opened the door for them, and we came in. And it was a happy ending to the story. So from then on, Warren really liked me and invited me to their house one day, and we just hit it off really well. I mean, wow. It was just instant.
That's freaking awesome, dude.
It was instant. It was. He always told me as the years went on that our friendship was so tight and endearing, and that he said that we were kind of traveled the same. Sensibilities were the same, and they would travel in the same wavelength. He would say, there's this wavelength that we travel on. It's like we're, there's something to
absolutely, dude. I love it, man.
He would tell me that he would always have problems co-writing with other people, that there will always be a problem or ego thing, or why don't you like that, or why don't you like this? And with me, there was never a problem. We would just sit down and write a song, and there would be no fucking. Oh, sorry.
No, it's all right. No, it's all right. Yeah.
And it would be no thing. You know what I mean? So that's why we wrote so many songs, and I ended up still working at the end, especially on the last record.
What is the when did you start? I just want to be clear that you knew a woman who, when she called you, did you know? Was that the first time you met Warren? Was getting him out of jail?
Yeah, Crystal. Zevon, she became Zevon, Crystal Zevon. She was at the time going out with him, and she called me to get her boyfriend out of the drunk tank, and that's how I met Warren. And then I became friends of his, and then later on they got married and had a kid or a daughter, and that's how I met him. I then found out that he had been playing with the Everly Brothers, and Waddy was in the band too, so they knew him too, but I didn't know him.
Wow!
But I met him on this occasion on my own without that other crowd of people. So we started working. I mean, the next thing I knew, he said, "Man, I just got a record deal, Jackson Brown. He really pulled the strings at Elektra, Asylum Records, and he's going to produce my record, and I want you to." So he called me at one point. He called me I want you to sing on this song of mine called "I'll Sleep When I'm Dead." And once you come down to the studio there, Elektra Studios on the Cienega. So I went there. That's when I met Jackson Brown.
Wow.
And that day I sang harmonies and the stuff on "I'll Sleep When I'm Dead" on the Warren Zevon album. And then the next album that he started working with was Excitable Boy.
Right.
Excitable Boy was. But I was around to all that stuff with the writing, and we say, "Oh man, I wrote this one song," or "Oh, we just wrote this thing called Werewolves of London," and so I had heard Werewolves of London as a demo. And
wait, hold on, wait, I want to break that down. Wait, you heard that? What was your first? Do you remember when you first heard it?
Oh yeah, it was a demo, and I thought it was funny because I knew Waddy and I knew Leroy Marinell, who are the two guys that wrote it with him. With Warren. Each one of them wrote a verse.
That's sick.
And yeah.
That is
so I knew that, and then so when Excitable Boy came around, then they were going to record the song for real on a major label kind of thing, on a real record of the song.
Right.
Because before it was just demos. So at one point in that record, Warren came to me and said, I have this song. Actually, Jackson and Warren came to me. Said, there's this song that's great. It's called Veracruz, but it needs a part. Warren wants it. Warren says, why don't you listen to this and see if you can come up with a Spanish, a refrain in Spanish for this song. So I listened to the song and I came up with the part that ended up in the song, and also I filled in a line that he was missing on the English part, and he loved it. So he that was the start of our songwriting thing, and then another one that he wanted to do was this thing called Nighttime in the Switching Yard, which was a story written by the same guy that co-wrote Roland the Headless Thompson Gunner with him, David Lindell, I think it was his last name, Lindell. And so he says, the story, all he had was a story. The story is it's a switching yard. This guy works at a switching yard, and he switches the train. So the scene is that we're at night, the trains are coming, but the switching guy is a junkie. So he's he's about to switch, make the switch so the trains could go through different tracks, but he nods out, and so it's going okay. So we were just like, it was going. It's at nighttime in switching yard. And I said, "Oh yeah, cool." So we would start, and Waddy was with us, so it was the three of us.
Oh my
God! So we were
God.
trying to make this. So I wrote a verse, kind of depicting what it would be like. The guy nods out, and all that stuff. But the song was so long because it was a groove song, and it's a big intro at the beginning, a long intro. So it would be too long to have that verse. So that verse was not in the thing, which when you hear it, you go, get it out on the main line. Like you don't think that main line means the vein. And, it's like, see the train coming both ways, like we hear all this stuff and it's like surreal, but it really doesn't to get to the real story that Lindell wrote.
Right.
But when I do the song myself in the I always put the verse that I wrote on it so that I complete the idea. But that's another one that we wrote, me, Warren, and Waddy together. Waddy had that, he put that guitar, that thing, that release it has. So we all collaborated on that one.
Would you play bass? Would you play bass live with Warren?
When I played with Warren in 1978, after that, he had gone on tour after Werewolves became a hit and stuff. He went out with Rick Marotta on drums, Waddy on guitar. Yeah, rhythm guitar was, I think, David Landau, John Landau's brother.
Wow.
And John Landau, the Bruce Springsteen's manager.
Right.
Not the guitar player. And then it's, who else? And Warren. And I think that was it. So they gigged for a while, but then in the middle of the tour in 78, he called me. Warren called me and said, I need you, man. I need you. Waddy and Marotta are leaving, and I'm going to have to keep going with on my tour with a new drummer, and I need a guitar. So I went into the band. Landau became the lead player, and I became the rhythm guitar player and the singer. So that's what I played.
Wait, you just stepped in there and pulled that off, no problem?
Well, yeah, I learned some of the songs I didn't know. Yes, of course, I had to do my woodshedding, but I did.
But you kind of you didn't really have a lot of time to think about it. I mean, the tour was still going on. You had to get out there and just go.
Well, I'll tell you, I was on the road with Mick Fleetwood had gotten me into this gig with Bob Welch.
Right.
Bob Welch had a big record out with all this stuff, and he needed somebody that could sing some stuff that could sing like V had sung, and it was like, what? And they already had the band, so I ended up playing acoustic guitar and singing with the band. But I felt like I was like an added, I wasn't really doing what I can do. It's just like an added piece that they needed.
Right.
And so when Warren called, and I said, oh man, that would be great, because there I'm playing with the band. I'm playing electric guitar with the band and singing with the dude that I've been working with. I told Bob Welch, and Bob was really cool about it. He said, Jorge, go do it, man. It's fine. Don't worry. I'll get a percussionist that can sing and whatever. So we parted ways, and he was a gentleman. He was great. Bob was a really nice guy, a really good guy. So I went with Warren, and I did that, and that's what that was. It ended up, and then but that's the only time that I played with Warren live. Well, later I played some some stuff, special things. And there was a benefit that we did in the 90s, and I played bass and go and play guitar and stuff. But back then, I only played on that tour. Now, what I wanted to tell you about Warbles of London is Warbles of London, I had gone to Miami, and Mick Fleetwood had called him in. I got a ticket for you to come to Miami. We're playing this big. Sorry, I can't do the English accent, but we're playing this big stadium in Miami, and 90,000 people and all this stuff. And I want you to come down. And so I went there, and believe me, I was throughout the concert. I was sitting on Mick Fleetwood's
drum riser,
drum platform there. Yeah. Right next to him, and just like having a great time with him while the whole Fleetwood Mac thing was going on. And so we had a great time. When I came back to LA, I went straight to the studio, the Sound Factory in Hollywood, because that's where I had been going almost every day while Warren was recording, because even though it wasn't just because of the songs we wrote, it was because I was singing backgrounds with the guys, with Jackson and Wally and J.D. Souther and people like that, Kenny Edwards. We all became the guys that sang the backgrounds. So I was going there every day. So when I came back, there was nobody there. But they said, "Oh, Waddy's in the back in the office." So I went to the office in the back, and Waddy was there, and he was like all sad, long face. And I said, "Dude, what's going on?" So, "Oh man, we're just, this is like the sixth time that we tried Rolls of London, and we tried all these rhythm sections. We have great players, and nobody can really nail the song. It's just like, I guess it's too simple. It's too something. They just we cannot give it, it can't happen." And I said, "How about Mick and John?" And he looked at me like, "Really?" I said, "Yes."
Wow.
"Don't you think? I can call Mick right now." I said, "Oh man." So I called Mick.
Oh my Mick. God.
Right. So I called Mick and I said, "Man, would you like to do this?" And "Yeah, you and John." He said, "Oh yeah, all right. So let's do it." So to put it simply, I was the guy with the jumper cables when Waddy and Jackson and them needed a jump, and I'm proud to be that guy, and I'm glad it happened.
Dude, I think you're blessed. You're so blessed, man.
Yeah, because
what, like we just talked about before, you're connected to all the cats, but yet you're not having to deal with the insanity of fame.
Well, that's exactly. It was, it's like, I've read. I really like reading books about directors, and John Huston and famous directors, because I love directing, because it's almost like being a record producer in a way. And there's people like that. You find out that this guy said something to somebody, and all of a sudden, oh yeah, that's a good idea. And all of a sudden, it becomes this majestic thing that happened in history because just somebody brought that idea,
right?
Or make the connection, or called the guy. Hey, you want to talk to this guy because he needs this. And that's exactly what I did. But Mick and John and Fleetwood Mac was so big at the moment that it actually helped. Not only that they played it the way it should have been played and sounded like a hit record, but also the aura of it was Mick Fleetwood and John McVie from Fleetwood Mac on this record. It gave it a little push. So it worked for everybody. It was wonderful.
What was the groove like before that wasn't getting? I can't even imagine because that is such
Well, that's the thing. You see, a song when it's like we were talking about Kiss and Run yesterday. When a song is that simple, it's like, oh, that's easy because it's simple. No, you're wrong. Sometimes the simplest songs are the ones that are the hardest.
Steve Gadd said the same thing, man. Yeah, totally.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you don't get the right
Feel. It's the feel. Yeah.
approach,
Yeah.
the feel and the approach to it that'll make it be something peculiar.
It's got to have
Then-
it's got to still have a pulse.
Then
You know?
then you'll sound like everybody. You know,
Right.
you'll sound like everybody playing a stupid song, like Sugar Sugar. You know, like if you know you hear Wilson Pickett's version, and you get that boom. That's Al Jackson or somebody like that playing that song. Boom. So that's what happened with Werewolves. That Mick Fleetwood has his beat, and John McVie is a perfect bass player for him, and it happened. It happened. And then Waddy, you know, everybody. It was great. I was there. Take 52. I mean, and listen, Take 52 because we were having fun. They were having fun. It was, you know, it could have been take 2 or 4, but they kept playing and playing and playing, and then all of a sudden,
Wow, dude, 52, man.
Yeah.
Dude, Jorge Calderon, man, I love you, man. Let's I gotta hop, but let's do part 3 and stay in touch, man. I feel so humbled that God put us together, man.
Yeah, let's do one about Warren and the stuff with the records we made, and especially the Wind, which is going to be. It has been we remastered it, and it's going to be out on vinyl, remastered especially for vinyl. It's going to be out in April of this year.
Oh, that's perfect, dude. Yeah.
On record day, record store day, whatever they call it.
Yeah.
And it's going to be wonderful. It sounds amazing. Way better than it sounded before 20 years ago. It's just like remastered beautifully. It has a depth and a sound to it. It's just wonderful.
No, man.
So we'll do that whenever you want, man.
Yeah, man. No, I appreciate you, and you know, accept my friend request on Facebook because I'm transcribing some of the stories. People are like, I transcribed the one about Lindley saying you're the bass player. People love that, you know, you know, because the truth is, man, like, you know, he needs the vibration to be raised right now for his health, you know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so we're doing that, man. So you know, keep doing your thing, man.
Okay.
All right, be cool.
Take care.
Peace.